Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, friends. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your practice. Thank you for your support. Just taking a second to like and subscribe is very important. It's Bodhisattva effort. It helps us propagate Nichiren scholarship of Shakyamuni's teachings of the Lotus Sutra method for self-realization, self-manifesting Buddha. Yeah? All right. Shoten Zenjin. It's in our daily Gongyo. It doesn't really come up that often specifically as this term throughout the writings, the text, the commentaries of Shakyamuni. Sometimes, a few times in Nichiren, but not a whole lot, not like other terms. But it figures prominently in our daily Gongyo. So what's up? What does it mean? And when we go look up various ways of finding out what it means, we're given a lot of terms of, they're very general, right? And maybe that's appropriate, but let's dig into it a little bit to give ourselves a better understanding. And I think where I always go with these kinds of terms is this basic understanding that I never had a teacher or read anything that made it clear this expedient means, this skillful device of teaching. Although, it's everywhere in culture, in Western culture, Eastern culture. We do it all the time, but we don't, that thing, identifying things. We don't call it out. And so here comes, the Japanese with this label, and they never associate it with what we do all the time. So let me try to do that, and maybe this term will become demystified in the process, yeah? So it's a Japanese term, and I have 4 associations here with it. Also Buddhist gods, right? We hear that translation all the time. There are no gods or deities specifically in Buddhism. They talk about them all the time, but as I've said countless times, they are personages. Do you remember what a personage is? I believe it's in the book. I have this book online on the Gohonzon map, and it specifically is stories of all the personages that are on this mandala. Yeah? Personages are basically umbrella terms for mental activities, for mental experiments, for types of behavior, right? We do this all the time. If somebody's miserly and rubs the faces off of a nickel, right, we say, we'll have all kinds of cliches about people who are stingy. There's an umbrella term. How about Scrooge? That's a personage, isn't it? I mean, it's a cartoon character, but it's referenced in outside of cartoons. It's also referenced in many great books, right? A Scrooge is a character in a book, but it becomes in culture a term identifying a type of behavior. Oh, don't go to her. You won't get any help from her. She's such a Scrooge. Right? She won't help you with your celebration or money, more particularly. Right? We know what a personage is. Well, why don't we see it so clearly in Buddhism? Because that's what's going on. These aren't actual. People want to take things so literally. Just it impairs, inhibits, gets in the way of understanding the meaning of what something. When you understand, when somebody says, "Don't bother talking to him, he's a Scrooge," do you now need to know a whole litany of facts about this person so that you can understand why you might want to avoid them? No. Oh, right. The personage holds all of this charisma, and you understand. So Shoten Zenjin is an umbrella of umbrellas. Does that make sense? These universal forces, you hear that all the time. The protective gods, the tutelary gods, the guardian deities, right? These are all different umbrellas for functions of behavior, mental cognition, right? Secondly, the gods that protect the correct Buddhist teaching and its practitioners. In other words, there's a special energy around something that is truthful and correct, not because so-and-so says it, not because some school says it, but because empirically it is correct. Water is wet. We can argue about it all day long, but water is wet. And there's a certain truth to that. What do you want to call that truth? What do you want that apparent truth? You can give it a name, right? You could say there's a certain quality about truth that it just comes through. That would fall under the rubric of Shoten Zenjin. You see? Gods who function to protect the people and their land and bring good fortune to both. It's just an extension of that same thing. They're not actual gods. Follow? Thirdly, universal forces again, or gods, and benevolent influences, much more close to the truth. 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. Is a generic term for the Buddhist pantheon that includes Brahma, Shakra, the four heavenly kings, the sun goddess, the gods of the sun and moon, and the other deities. Right? We're not talking about actual gods. We're talking about aspects of the engine of life. There's consistency in them. There's certain life-giving properties in them. Certainly, you wouldn't argue that the sun doesn't offer us tremendous life-giving properties. It can burn you too. But it's certainly a tremendous influence in the life of every sentient and non-sentient being, living thing, right? So we call it the sun. You want to call it a sun god, go ahead, but don't get it twisted. It isn't judging us. It isn't looking at our merit. The sun will burn you or light your way regardless of your character. It's just doing what it does, just like the engine of life, yeah? It's you and I with our sentient minds that start adding all of this fanciful stuff. So many of these gods and deities were traditionally revered in India, China, and Japan. All, of course, are invented personages used to encompass the forces of the engine of life. Well, I'm repeating myself now. Finally, Shoten Zenjin became part of Buddhist thought as Buddhism flourished in those areas. See, the idea of Shoten Zenjin has been around since time immemorial. Humans have constantly projected themselves into their environment rather than understanding that the environment is actually a reflection of what we do personally, not as a separate other imposing itself upon us. See, this is constantly the rub, and this is the one thing Buddhism, like nothing else, makes painfully obvious. But once you get it, it's tremendously empowering, isn't it? Oh, I'm not a victim of life. I'm the progenitor. Rather than primary objects of belief or devotion, Buddhism tends to view them as functioning to support and protect the Buddha, the mind state, not a person, not a god, the law, the process, the engine of life, or Buddhist teachings and practitioners, because we're an extension of the law. Right? We read this in Gongyo too. We are manifestations of the law. We are a result of the engine of life, with the uncanny, incredible ability to witness it. All right. It is important to understand that in our time, these forces of Shoten Zenjin are the very momentum of energy formations, karma, that provide for our lives and the existence of all phenomena. Shoten Zenjin could today be defined as the very momentum and influences on that momentum that work to provide the opportunity for the experience of Buddha-ness in an otherwise sterile and unconscious universe of activity. That's a big sentence. But once again, I'm trying to encompass the idea of how precious and singular our sentience is to the entire universe. The functions of the universe, the galaxies, the stars, the planets. Just really? Sorry about that. Just dropped a bunch of frames. Why? Anyway, everything is doing what it does as a matter of physical processes, energy forming into stuff. It's the engine of what we call life. Life, what we call life, is a very physical reality. We think of it in what is the common phrase now? Woo-woo. But all of that spiritualness, all of that idea of something going on that isn't physical, that's the sentient mind. Don't ascribe to that sentience these foreign powers that somehow are happening to you. They're yours. This is where we find Buddha. In harnessing all of it as of our own experience and our own influence. Only our sentient minds afford the opportunity for witnessing this amazing process that is as fleeting as it is easily persuaded and obfuscated. It's fragile. We have to work and train our minds to hang on to that perspective rather than typecasting it, putting into cubicles, but as concepts outside of ourselves. Remember what Nietzsche said. This very thing, this very sentience, this go honzon, this aspect of our mind, Don't look for it outside your flesh and blood body. It is you. A simplified consideration representing this term could be to understand Shoten Zenjin as an umbrella term suggesting the multiple and constant influences in the process of life, both personally and universally. I should say sea engine of life. I didn't say it there. I hope that's enough. I don't think it needs any more attention to that. But it's really a simple thing to consider, but it has implications across all of Buddhist teachings, right? Constantly reminding ourselves, oh yeah, this is about my mind. This is what I can avail myself to. This is putting me in the driver's seat. Not because I wasn't designed to do this. This is inherent in our sentience. But I need to train myself to continue to be in that mind. I need to train myself to stop being distracted. All those terms we have for the distractions. A monkey mind. I love that one, right? All those monkeys yelling and screaming at us for attention, like our phones. Like advertising, like programming, like our on and on and on. So Shoten Zenjins, they're not a specific thing. They're an umbrella term about all of these influences. And fundamentally, if you dig into that enough, that concept, that idea, you'll find that it's the 3,000 realms in every single thought moment. That's how many monkeys there are. All vying for your... Is attention the right word? All right. Thanks for listening. Be kind to yourself. Take care of your health. Again, I hope this video finds you all in good health and secure circumstances. We live in a very scary world today in many regards, and our Sangha is all over the world. So some of you, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, you are in my thoughts. So please, I do mean it. Take care of your health. Take care of yourself. If you can extend a few seconds to like and subscribe, it's a Bodhisattva act for the growth of the Sangha. If you can do more than that, buy an ebook or and avail yourself to all the free info on threefoldlotus.com, the podcast, so on and so forth. And patrons, as always, we all are deeply appreciative of your commitments. So this is the gratitude section, yeah? Look, stay healthy. Keep your practice strong. That's number one. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.